Hello and welcome back to another episode of Telephone Tales with me, Lisa. Yes, I am still all on my own here, no co-host. Therefore, I do not have accountability, and that is why a new episode has taken so long to upload, because times are strange right now. I don't know if you are aware, but there's a little thing called a worldwide crisis going on with this whole coronavirus / COVID-19 business. And so we're all hunkered down in our homes, and yeah, it's crazy. But I have been actually extremely busy because of this, and so it's been taking me a lot of time to sort of rearrange life a little bit and schedule things differently. I'm working from home, which is taking up a lot more of my time than I thought it would, because my day-to-day job, my day job, I guess you would call it, is a very hands-on job, in which I am, working in environments and in the field and things like that, and taking that inside and doing a telehealth has been a new challenge. And so it takes me about twice as long to do my normal job. So anyways, that's been taking some time, but I'm committed and I am going to do this because I love it and it's fun. And so I'm all by myself here, and I don't have anyone to really hold me accountable and say, hey, come on, we got to do this. And so this is one of those things where it's on the list of things to do, but it's not a priority, so it keeps getting pushed back. So I apologize for the time in between uploads, but I am going to get right into this. So what I have been doing during this time to sort of survive is, try to find things of enjoyment on the off times. And one of those is definitely going outside. I love being out in nature and stuff like that. So I will walk at least once a day, even if it's just around the block, just to get that vitamin D, and it's been really nice. I live in Florida, and the weather here has just been phenomenal. It's been usually under 85 degrees, which for us it is pretty nice. And it's been breezy and just, very nice. So I've been taking advantage of that when I can. And I've been reading a little bit more, and trying to read before bed so that I am not looking at a screen. It's really been helping me fall asleep and have a better night's sleep. So I've been doing that. That's a new thing I've been trying out. And I've also been playing some games on one game is Sherlock. I got the Sherlock game, or rather my boyfriend bought that for me so that I could play it. So I do about an hour a night before I get ready for bed, and then before I read. So it's been kind of fun because it keeps my brain occupied, and it's challenging, and it's interesting and fun. So I highly recommend that, or a Nancy Drew game or something like that, because it's fun and it also challenges you. So what else? I have been trying to work out a little bit more as far as trying new workouts, and I basically just go on YouTube and do a 30-minute workout from someone that I find, in addition to what I already do, which is basically yoga and Pilates, or things I normally would do, but I'm trying to add a little bit more. But honestly, it's basically just leveling things out, because since this whole thing started, my food intake has been horrible. I mean, I guess it's just from being home all day. I don't know. My diet is not okay. It's gotten really bad. So it's basically offsetting that. So if I could just get that under control and start, cooking and being more health-minded when I'm eating, because normally when I'm working during the week, I'm out, I make a quick lunch to eat on my way, something, healthy and nutritious, something light, because I don't like to be heavy during the day when I'm out doing jobs and stuff. So I'm usually very mindful about what I'm eating in the mornings and in the afternoons and stuff. So I don't know. I'm just kind of going into the kitchen, grabbing whatever is there, which is usually something bad, and eating it. So this has been an issue, well, not an issue, but just a struggle that I'm trying to get better at. So if you're in that with me, hooray. If you're not, congratulations. I'm proud of you. It is tough when you're, everything routine switches and then you just fall on to what's the easiest thing. So, and again, I have a time constraint situation here because I am working, I don't know why it's harder now, but it is. Okay, moving on. So, has everyone heard of the phenomenon that I feel like everybody has seen now, but they were very good on their timing with coming out with this show. The show I'm referring to is Tiger King, and I know everybody's talking about it. I know it's like the thing to watch during COVID-19 quarantine. So yeah, we did watch it. We watched it pretty, basically when it came out, because we would have watched it anyways. That's definitely something that we like. We like documentaries, we like memoirs, like learning about interesting and fun people, and obviously crazy stories and things like that. And that brings me to, we had actually watched a documentary about him. Well, I wasn't 100% about him, but it was about people who own exotic animals, and he was a focus in that show, and it was a documentary done by Louis Theroux, and who, by the way, if you've never seen a documentary done by him, you need to go and try to find one, because he is one of the best documentarian, I don't know if that's a word, but he is one of the best people that I've ever watched who do documentaries. There you go. It's a better way to say it. And pretty much every single thing that he's put out has been worth seeing. So anyway, but he did one a long time ago, oh gosh, it was so long ago. I think it was even before he was married. It was before any of that stuff. So we knew of him. And so when we saw this out, we're like, hey, that's the guy from Louis Theroux's documentary. We got to watch that. So that's originally why we watched it. And anyway, it's insane. I mean, we obviously, like everyone else, blown away. Every episode was crazy. So with that in mind, it prompted me to sort of look into murder for hire stories. So that's what today's episode is going to be about. Murder for hire. I was shocked when going through this, when trying to research this stuff, how common and how often people do this. It's pretty common for people to reach out and look into murder for hire and hire somebody to kill somebody that they know or that they're connected with in some way. I mean, shocking for me. There's an entire show which I'm surprised I've never seen or heard about, but it's called Murder for Hire. I mean, it's an entire show dedicated to that, and I think it's on Oxygen. Let me check. Yeah, it's on Oxygen, and I mean, I haven't seen any of the episodes yet. I didn't have time to watch any right now, so definitely check that out, I guess, if you're interested in that, because I will be checking it out when I have time. But the fact that there's an entire show dedicated to it with full-on episodes and everything, I don't know how many seasons there are, if there are any seasons, but the fact that they have enough content to make a show, that's crazy. I mean, that's insane. So I have some stories to share with you, but first, before I do that, I'm going to read a little bit about people who will go through with it and actually get hired and commit these murders. And I guess technically they're called hitmen, which sounds so theatrical and movie based, but it's a real thing. I mean, a hitman or a contract killer is going to have the ability to, I guess, cut off their emotions and see people as nothing more than money. You know, they don't see them, they dehumanize them, basically. I read this article, and it was called The 4 Different Types of Hitmen. So I'm going to kind of read that because it's not that long, and it kind of gives a good overview of what we're dealing with here. And I got this on when I was researching that show Murder for Hire. So I got it off of the Oxygen website, but it was a study done by researchers. And yeah, so let's just get into it. And I'm going to jump around this article because I didn't really like the way it was formatted. So I'm going to read it from the bottom up, basically, because I was like reading through the article and I keep thinking, where are these 4 different types? Where are these 4 different types? All the way at the very end of the article. So yeah, I'm going to read that part first. I'm going to, paraphrase. There we go. So there's 4 different types. The first type is a novice. This is somebody who gets just hired. They're usually young. They've never done it before. It's the first time. They probably won't ever do it again. It's like a one-off thing, and they just take some money, and it's usually a very small amount of money because they don't understand how much people typically pay for it. So they just take money if it sounds good to them, and then they go in and they commit the murder. And sometimes they will commit it and sometimes they won't. So, but that's what a novice is. Oh, sorry, they do commit the murder. So a novice is somebody who just takes it one time, first time, go in, kill them, and they're done. The second type is, well, I would consider this to be the first type because the novice actually does go through with it, but a dilettante, I think it's called a dilettante. Let me double check that. Yes, I was correct. It is dilettante. A dilettante is somebody who has an interest in it and wants to do it, but they don't have the commitment or the knowledge. So most of the time, it's kind of like, what's that phrase? A wannabe, like a wannabe hitman, where they talk it up like they would be, or that they are interested in doing it, but they don't ever follow through with it. They kind of keep making excuses, or they just they chicken out, basically. So that's the second one, but technically I feel like that's the first one. And then the third is a journeyman. So a journeyman is a higher level hitman. They do go through with it. They do it multiple times. It's a career for them, and they usually are connected with some kind of organized crime unit. So because of that, they have careers that are cut short by police quite often because their connections with organized crime make it easier for them to identify or be identified. So they are considered a reliable but not especially exceptional hitman. They're a good bet, but they're not 100%, safe. So that's 3. And then number 4 is a master hitman, and they are typically associated through the military or have once been in the military, or they have paramilitary experience, and they will also travel. So they will go far to complete their hits. They will go into local underground connections, and they are very good at elite. What's the word? I'm gonna think of it. It's gonna come to me. Gosh, my brain. They will just basically evade. There we go. Evade the police because they know what they're doing. They know how to maneuver. They know how to get through, police radars and stuff like that. So they are considered to be a very experienced and professional hitmen, and they usually have as many as 100 or more kills under their belt. Those are the typical 4. But most of the people who hire the hitmen, there are cases in which it's like a professional. People want to eliminate other professionals. It's usually almost always for money or something of that sort, but a lot of these are just relatives, devious spouses, people who are jealous, but it's usually people close to someone else who hires. So I don't know, it's very unusual and strange. So they did give some examples of these types of hitmen in this article. So I guess I could read a couple of those, but I'll go ahead and read just the beginning of this. Hitmen perform a service that is unimaginable to most people, with some carrying out dozens of hits over their careers. One infamous mob killer, Richard the Iceman Kalinsky, may have boasted as many as 250 victims. Still, killers for hire differ from serial killers in that most of whom take lives to satisfy some inner urge are serial killers, whereas hitmen are in it for the money. Emotions are not involved at all, and that's according to criminologist Scott Bond, who notes that serial killers typically experience an emotional cooling off period between their murders, and professionals are different. Hitmen do not experience or require a cooling off period between their murders because of the unemotional and pragmatic nature of their killings. So, what gets a person into the headspace of becoming a contract killer, a place where life is valued using nothing more than figures and dollar signs? This is the psychology of a hitman, but I don't really know if this is considered psychology of the hitman, but we'll go into it anyway. People becoming targets. A hitman or contract killer will most likely have the ability to depersonalize their victim, to think of them merely as a target or a number, rather than being human, according to a number of psychologists and criminologists. A team of criminologists at Berkham City University in 2015 reported over 27 confirmed cases of contract killings in the United Kingdom and made several observations about the psychology of perpetrators, according to Science Daily. The infamous English hitman Jimmy Moody, who was active from the 1960s to the 1980s, is a prime example of a successful contract killer because he was able to depersonalize his victims and treat his work as just that. Moody reframed his victims as targets, seeing getting the job done as a normal business activity. These sorts of killings are akin to criminal undertakers who have given themselves special liberty to get things done in the name of business. Although certainly less experienced than Moody, Santari Sanchez Gale, 15 years old, from North London, completed a successful hit in 2010 by shooting Gulistan Subasi in the chest with a shot-off shotgun just as she was opening her front gate, according to The Guardian. Gale killed Subasi for just $200 and got, 200 pounds and got a minimum sentence of 20 years for the contract killing. Wow. According to Rahman and Wilson, they call the murder a classic example of detachment because Gale didn't risk seeing his target as a human by shooting her the moment he saw her. And later they do say that Gale is an example of a novice because he was young, he took a very small amount of money, and he did commit a murder, but he didn't do it successfully. He was caught, and his experience was limited. So Orville Wright, 26 on the other hand, lost his nerve when it came time to complete his 25,000-pound hit and stab Teresa Pitkin, a mother of 3, in 1996. By actually speaking with his target, he humanized her and couldn't bring himself to do it. So they did later compare him to a dilettante, which I guess is because he chickened out. When contract killing, well, I don't really consider it chickening out. That just sounds like, I don't know, that kind of puts a negative thing on it, but I mean, honestly, he did the right thing. So to me, it's not chickening out, it's doing the right thing. So when contract killers aren't successful in switching off their emotions, their jobs tend to not go as planned. And basically, that's it. So that's what a hitman is. That's what a contract killing is. It's crazy that there's so many people out there that will do this. But also, for me, it's more how many people hire for this, which is kind of frightening. But I don't know. I should look up the percentage, like what percentage of murders are murders for hire. I wonder if I can find that. Okay, well, let's see. I don't know why Scotland has a percentage on this and the rest of the world doesn't, but murder for hire made up about 5% of all murders in Scotland between 1993 and 2002, which is actually a lot. I mean, that's a lot. But anyways, there is some further information I do want to read about from the FBI, but I'm going to read that at the very end. So we're going to get right into the stories for now. All right, since I am in Florida, I'm going to start with a Florida murder for hire. This is actually a pretty famous case of a woman who tried to murder for hire her husband. And they were pretty newlywed at the time, but this is the case of Dalia Dippolito. So Dalia Dippolito tried to murder her husband, Mike Dippolito, and she contacted one of her friends, which was actually, I think, a lover of hers, and she had asked him if that was possible, if it was something that he had connections with, of somebody who might be able to murder her husband. And he was concerned with that, so he went to the police, and then the police set up kind of surveillance on her, and the lover became an informant for them, and said that the police officer was his friend and he was going to be the one that would carry out the murder. And so he set up a meeting with her and this undercover police officer, and they have it all on tape of her trying to solicit his services for murder for hire. And it's kind of crazy, and it's all on tape and it's all videotaped. So if you do want to see this case, it's, you know, just look it up on, probably YouTube would even have it. There's lots of information out there about it. But the crazy thing about it was when she was brought to trial. Well, actually, I'll say beforehand that the police actually went as far as to stage his murder. They created a whole scene of police around his house and staged it so that she would believe that the murder actually took place. And so when she came, they informed her that your husband has been murdered, and she had this whole reaction of crying and, you know, faking being upset and all of this. And so all of this stuff was used in her trial, and it only took 3 days for her to be convicted, but it was quickly overturned and there was an appeal put in. And because of her appeal, she was let out and she was put on house arrest. So she spent like 10 years or something. It was crazy, like 10 years on house arrest before being sent back to jail for it, because of this appeal. I'm not really sure of those details. I'd have to research it a little bit more, but within the time that she was put on house arrest and the time where she was reconvicted, she had a whole life. She even had a child, and, you know, she went on with her life. And so she really believed that she was going to get off. And the main reason was because they felt like the lawyers argued entrapment, saying that they entrapped her by videotaping her and without her consent and all of these things, which ended up being overturned because I think they thought it was a TV show. There was some kind of TV show involved in this, but the TV show didn't come into effect until later, and none of the footage from the show was used in the trial. It was all behind the scenes stuff from the police. So ultimately, she was found guilty after all of that appeal process, and she did go to jail, and she will be in jail until August 24th, 2032. And I think she got 16 years or something like that. So after, you know, I think total, I don't remember her total sentence, but they included her house arrest within her sentencing, I believe. So that was kind of a crazy case, but really interesting. So look that up if you want to. And then the next one was a girl from Michigan. These are ones that I watched, so it was hard for me to just read the synopsis. I'm kind of just trying to remember based on what I watched from it. But and this is another one where it was a woman from Michigan who wanted to kill her husband, and they did the same thing where they had an undercover police officer get in a car with her, and they discussed, you know, every detail about how she wanted it done, where, you know, what day, and whether or not she was 100% sure of this, and, you know, where her mindset was. And it's just crazy to me how your mind can go to a place where murder for hire is your first reach. That's where your mind is like, yeah, instead of divorcing him, I'm going to just kill him. And her reasoning for this was because it would just be the easy way out. It'd be easier than divorcing. It wouldn't be messy. It wouldn't be drawn out. She wouldn't have ridicule from her family. She wouldn't be embarrassed about having a failed marriage. And more than likely she would get some kind of money from it, you know, an insurance or something. So I don't know. It's just, but there was zero emotion connected to this. She had already made the decision. She was just trying to figure out, how, and she was more concerned with, the mess that it would be making inside of her home. So she's like, if you can get him outside and do it there, that would be better, because then, I wouldn't have this mess inside of my house. And she was also concerned about the way that she wanted it done was she wanted somebody to come in to rob the place and then find him, and then they get into an altercation and then he dies. But she was like, but I don't want to live there alone after he's gone. So I want a friend of mine to move in with me, but she won't move in if she's scared. So then they discussed, making it so that it doesn't seem like an unsafe neighborhood. And I don't know, it was just so interesting to me how people think that way. And not just the people murdering, but the people hiring for murder. That's another interesting one that you can look up on YouTube. And I'm sure that some of these will probably be on that show, Murder for Hire. I don't know. I haven't seen that show, so don't take my word for it. Okay, we are moving on to 10 most outrageous murder for hire plots. And this was written by Robin Werder from listverse.com. So these are her top 10, and it was done back in 2014. So nothing recent, but still good, I'm sure. And she starts off the article just indicating, kind of breaking down what it is to hire somebody to kill someone else, and, what the effect of murder for hire situation is, kind of what we already covered. So I'm going to just jump right into number 10. Number 10 is Brazilian television host orchestrates murders to boost his show's ratings. And this one says, for nearly 20 years, Wallace Souza was the host of Canal Lavir, a very popular Brazilian reality TV show that showcased police investigating crime scenes. Sounds interesting. In fact, the show proved so popular that Souza was able to branch out into a successful political career, and his show Crime Fighting Platform helped him get elected to the state assembly. However, in 2008, Souza found himself at the center of a shocking scandal. During this time period, Canal Lavir, I hope I'm saying that right, Lavir, seemed to, I'm going to actually look that up so I say it correctly. Okay, the internet is saying Livre, Canal Livre, seemed to feature an awful lot of murder cases, and show's camera crew would often show up to the crime scenes well before the police. Suspicion started to mount that Souza had been hiring hitmen to kill people in an attempt to increase ratings in the show. Oh my gosh, if that was real. Wow. After the murders, Souza would immediately tip off his reporters so that they could show up at the scene and capture fresh footage. Souza's personal bodyguard told police that at least a dozen murders had been staged for Canal Livre. In fact, one of the victims was reputed to have been a hitman who was taken out after turning down Souza's request to murder a judge. While Souza denied these claims, a raid of his home turned up weapons, cash, and a list containing the names of 4 recent murder victims. This lent credence to the theory that Souza was embroiled in a multi-million-dollar drug ring, and that many of his victims were rivals in the drug business. In October of 2009, after being expelled from the state's assembly, Souza was charged with numerous crimes, including murder and drug trafficking, and went on the run. Souza later turned himself into police, but would not live to stand trial. He died of liver disease in July of Why am I having so much trouble talking today? I can't even say so much trouble. That's how much trouble I'm having talking today. On July 27th, 2010. Oh, wow. That would be insane if he was actually killing people for his show. Nuts. Okay, that was 10. Let's see what 9 is. Oh, and this is another political thing. So, future mayor cons mafia boss into murdering an innocent couple. Oh, and there's a video. I wish I could watch this video on here, but obviously I can't. Maybe I should start doing not a live recording, but a video recorded episodes and putting them up on YouTube. Let me know if anybody would want to see that. That would mean I'd have to do a little bit more effort with my appearance, So I could go either way. Just an idea, just so you could see things like this video. Anyways, so during the late 1960s and early 1970s, a criminal organization known as the Dixie Mafia ran roughshod. I don't know what that means. Ran roughshod. I'm going to have to look that one up. So roughshod is a horse having shoes with nail heads projecting to prevent slipping. I wonder if that's what that actually means. To run a roughshod is to completely ignore the opinions, rights, or feelings of others. Okay, that makes more sense. Ran roughshod over the state of Mississippi. The reputed leader of the Dixie Mafia was career criminal Kirksey McCroyd Nix Jr., who was sentenced to life in prison for the 1971 murder of a businessman, but still controlled his criminal enterprise from behind bars. Nix ran a Lonely Hearts extortion scam, which involved placing personal ads in homosexual magazines. When men responded to these ads, Nix associates would con them out of money, and in 1987, Nix would orchestrate a murder-for-hire plot involving an unlucky conspirator, the future mayor of Biloxi. Hope I said that right. Biloxi. Nix took the money he made from the Lonely Hearts scam and entrusted it to his attorney, Pete Hallett. However, Hallett had taken approximately $500,000 from these funds and wound up spending it on himself. Out of desperation, he concocted a story about the money being stolen by his former law partner, Vincent Sherry. Of course, it's always someone else's fault. Who had recently become a circuit judge. In response, Nix ordered a hit on the judge and his wife, Margaret, who was planning to run for mayor of Biloxi. They were both shot to death in their home on September 14th, 1987. Since Margaret Sherry was the political rival, there was some suspicion that Gerald Blessey, the then mayor of Biloxi, had orchestrated the hit. Pete Hallett took advantage of this and achieved victory in the next mayor election. It would take a decade for the Sherrys to finally receive justice. In 1997, Nix Hallett and Thomas Holcomb, the hitman who performed the murder, were indicted for their roles in the crime. Nix and Holcomb were given life sentences, while Hallett received 18 years. Okay, I don't know. I was really impressed with the first one. Went downhill a little bit. We're back in it. The murder for hire of the Lobster Boy. I mean, this photo, oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. So Grady Stiles was born with a deformity called ectrodactyly. I'm gonna have to look that one up. This is how I'm learning. Okay. How do you say this? Okay, it's Ectrodactyly. Ectrodactyly. Split hand, cleft hand, derived from Greek ektroma, abortion, and dactylos, finger, involves the deficiency of absence of one or more central digits of the hand or foot, and is also known as split hand, split foot malformation. So this child was born with this, which caused his fingers to fuse together into claw-like digits. He also had stumps in place of his feet, rendering him unable to walk. The condition was hereditary and passed through the Stiles family for many generations. Like his ancestors, Grady Stiles would make his living performing in freak shows and carnivals. I have mixed feelings about that. I want them to be able to do something that earns them a living, and good on them to be able to, use what they have to succeed. But I also am kind of disgusted that people take joy in mocking and making fun of and finding entertainment from it. I'm not sure. I can see it both ways. So anyway, his deformity earned him the nickname Lobster Boy. In spite of his handicap, Stiles was still a very dangerous individual, an abusive alcoholic who frequently beat his wife and children. Wow. He had a wife and children, and they were beaten and they stayed with him. That's crazy. Okay, so in 1978, he was charged with shooting his daughter's fiance and was convicted of a third-degree murder. However, since no institutions were equipped to provide proper care for a man with ectrodactyly, Stiles got off with a sentence of 15 years probation. Another mixed feelings there. Don't want to just, treat the situation differently, but yeah, I get that there's not adequate things set up in place for that. Anyways, Styles continued to be violent and abusive towards his family for the next several years, until his wife Mary decided that the only way to get rid of him was by orchestrating his murder. With the help of Glenn Newman, her son from a previous marriage, Mary enlisted the services of 17-year-old Chris Wyant, paying him $1,500 to murder Grady. In November 29th, 1992, Wyant entered Grady's home and shot him in the head while he was watching television. It wasn't long before the three perpetrators would be indicted for murder. Since Glenn Newman was the mastermind behind the plot, he was given a life sentence, while Chris Wyant received 27 years. Mary expressed no regrets about having her husband killed, claiming it was the only way she could save her family. She wound up receiving a 12-year sentence. Whew, that one was rough. I mean, so many intricate details and mixed feelings. As I said, I wonder what you guys think. I wish I had some. This is when I need another person to bounce off of, because I love to discuss these things. Like, what do you think about this? What's going through your mind? You know? And anyway, so I'll just have to move on and deal with what I've got. Founder of the Chippendales arranges for the murder of his rivals. Chippendales. I mean, I get it. The Chippendales are a world-famous all-male dance troupe that has spent the last several decades. Of course, there's a murder for hire involved in some of these things. Makes sense. It's an all-male dance troupe, and they spent the last several decades performing stripteases throughout the world. One of the group's founders was Soman Banjari. What a cool name. Who he left his native India in the 1970s and opened up a Los Angeles nightclub featuring female strippers. Banjari soon realized that a club featuring male strippers could attract a potentially huge female clientele. He put his idea into motion and changed the name of his club to Chippendales. I wonder what prompted that. Maybe it was the bow? I don't know. Paving the way for eventual formation of the enormously successful dance troupe. Unfortunately, for Banjari, he is no longer around to enjoy the success after becoming embroiled in some murder-for-hire schemes. The original choreographer for the original choreographer for Chippendales was Nick DeNoa. I hope I'm saying that right. One of Banjari's partners. DeNoa eventually had a falling out with Banjari and left to form his own separate Chippendales touring company. In 1987, DeNoa was murdered inside of his office, shot in the face by a gunman disguised as a messenger. Things became crashing down. They just did. They crashed down for Banjari in 1991 after an informant approached the FBI claiming that he had hired to carry out a hit on 3 members of the British male dance troupe called Adonis. Okay? The potential victims were all former Chippendales dancers who had angered Banjari by leaving the group and forming a rival troupe. I mean, you gotta have the dance off, you know? It's good to have rivals. You know, competition, it's the foundation for success in some ways, right? Anyways, I digress. The subsequent investigation led to Banjari's arrest for orchestrating these murders, and while in custody, evidence came to light that Banjari had also ordered the death of Nick DeNoa. In 1994, Banjari decided to plead guilty to racketeering and arranging DeNoa's murder, which would have meant a 26-year prison sentence and the forfeiture of his interest in the Chippendales. On October 23rd, Banjari committed suicide by hanging himself in his cell. Wow. Also, apparently there's some movies that have been made about many of these. Never heard, but I guess it's the ones with the videos. That would make sense. This next one has a video. Wish I could show you, but I can't because it's all audio. Mary Ellen Samuel hires hitman to murder husband, hires 2 more hitmen to murder the hitman. Awesome. Okay. In 1988, Robert Samuels, a camera assistant who worked on several Hollywood productions, lived in Northridge, California with his wife, Mary Ellen, and their stepdaughter, Nicole, who was Mary Ellen's child from a previous marriage. On December 8th, Robert was murdered in his home by a shotgun blast in the head. Robert had recently asked his wife for a divorce, so suspicion immediately fell upon Mary Ellen, who wound up inheriting $500,000 after her husband's death. However, there was nothing to tie Mary Ellen to the murder until the case took a bizarre turn 7 months later. A 27-year-old man named James R. Bernstein was found beaten and strangled to death in an isolated canyon. It turned out that Bernstein was engaged to be married to Nicole Samuels. If you remember, Nicole Samuels, I'm assuming because I just said Nicole before, is Mary Ellen's daughter. Moving on. The investigation soon uncovered that Mary Ellen had made arrangements with Bernstein to murder her husband though whether Bernstein performed the deed himself or hired someone else to do it is unknown. Mary Ellen eventually became paranoid that Bernstein might talk and I can't even say it. I can't say that word. Subsequently, thank you, brain. Bernstein might talk and subsequently hired 2 more hitmen to take him out. For reduced sentences, these 2 killers agreed to testify against Mary Ellen. Following her arrest, she would be nicknamed the Green Widow, since she blew through her entire $500,000 inheritance in just 1 year. Probably because she knew it would be taken away. But one of the most damning pieces of evidence against Mary Ellen was a photograph taken by her new lover shortly after Robert's death. She was shown lying nude on a hotel bed in Cancun, covered by $20,000 in cash. In 1994, Mary Ellen Samuels was found guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. Wow. She remains on death row to this day. So she's still on death row. That's a long time. What was I going to say? Oh, yes. So this situation seems to be like what is it? Which one of the 4 hitmans this is a quiz. Which one of the 4 hitmans would you say this guy is? I'm thinking it's no, maybe not the journeyman, but the novice. Because the novices, I think, are ones that they take the money and then they will also they will then hire someone else to do it and then hire someone else to do it. I don't know. Anyways. Okay, I'm getting messages. Texty. Let me move on to the next one here. Okay, so this next one, the restaurateur hires talkative hitman to murder a rival. On the evening of August 30th, 1977, a restaurateur named Theodore T.K. Hardy was found murdered inside of his home in Athens, Georgia. He had been shot through the back of the head, execution style. Dang. Hardy ran a saloon in a popular Athens shopping district, a defunct railroad depot known as the Station, and had been engaged in a heated rivalry with another restaurateur named John Mooney. These are just the best names, right? It doesn't even seem real. Mooney owned a pizza place in the Station and was constantly attempting to undercut Hardy's business by stealing his customers. When Hardy managed to buy the station's lease, he demanded Mooney's cooperation. Shortly after, an attempt was made to set fire to Hardy's saloon, and Mooney was served with an eviction notice. Naturally, Mooney became the prime suspect in Hardy's murder, but he had an airtight alibi and was in Ohio that night. This is a big reason why people murder for hire, so they can have an alibi. But I'm still confused about why they're rivals if they have completely different businesses. Maybe I missed it when I was reading. I'm going to reread a little bit here. Oh, but he stole his customer. Okay, so he was a rival because he was stealing customers, but how is he stealing customers if they have different, like one of them owned a pizza place and one of them owned a saloon? Super confused. Anyway, in the end, the police didn't have much of an investigation to connect Mooney to Hardy's murder. A restaurant owner soon came forward and claiming an electrician named Elmo Florence. Listen, these names. Elmo? An electrician named Elmo Florence had flat out bragged to him that he was a professional hitman and was hired by John Mooney to kill Hardy. Florence even provided specific details that only the killer could have known. So he and Mooney were both indicted and given life sentences for their roles in Hardy's murder. However, you're going to believe a hitman? Really? Florence later made the dubious claim that Mooney only hired him to force Hardy to sign lease papers at gunpoint and that Hardy was killed when the gun went off accidentally. See, this is what I'm saying. You just took his word for it. 2 years after his conviction, Mooney managed to escape from prison and was on the run until his case was profiled in an Unsolved Mysteries show. There you go. In 1989. Viewer tips led the police to Mooney, who was living under a new identity in Arizona. he was promptly sent back to prison. How many people do you think you live near you who are living under a false identity? This is a very curious question. Just throwing it out there. Number 4. We're getting there. Wanda Holloway plans murder to help daughter make cheerleading squad. Oh, this is one that was made into a movie. 100% I know that. But I don't know the story very well. So I never saw the movie, but I do know that it exists. So let's see what it is all about. So Shauna Holloway, 14, was disappointed to learn that she would not be making their high school cheerleading squad in Chanel, Texas. Okay, here's the thing. I tried out for the volleyball team in high school, didn't make it, didn't want to kill anyone, although I was very upset. I guess it's just a difference of viewpoint there. Instead, the spot went to another girl named Amber Heath. This situation shouldn't have been anything more than standard high school drama, obviously. But Shauna's mother, Wanda Holloway, was devastated by the news. Actually, I don't even think my mom knew that I tried out for volleyball. So, I don't know what that says. But Shauna's mother, Wanda Holloway, was devastated by the news. Shauna never had much desire to become a cheerleader, but since Wanda was raised with a strict Baptist background and was never allowed to try out for the cheerleading squad when she was a teenager, she wanted to live vicariously through her daughter. In fact, Wanda Holloway was willing to commit murder in order to do so. Okay, this is a classic case of, what is it called when your parents basically make you do the things they wish they did but never did? There's a name for it. I'm gonna see if I can find that real quick. Be right back. Okay, didn't really find much. The only thing that came up was stage mom, which might be what I was thinking of, but maybe not. Anyways, Wanda approached Terry Harper, the brother of her ex-husband, and asked him to help her procure the services of a hitman. Wanda wanted to have Amber Heath's mother murdered. What? Believing that Amber would be so devastated by her mother's death that she would leave cheerleading squad and Shauna could take her spot. Wanda's former brother-in-law was disturbed by this proposal and informed the police, who asked Terry to wear a wire during his subsequent conversations with Wanda. On early January 30th, 1991, the day after Wanda was recorded providing Terry with a down payment for a hitman, she was arrested and charged with solicitation to commit a capital murder. Wanda was initially convicted of the crime and sentenced to 15 years in prison, but the verdict was overturned, and at her second trial, Wanda decided to plead no contest for a reduced sentence of 10 years. She was released after only serving 6 months and spent the remainder of her sentence on probation. Wow, that is some steps to take for cheerleading. Although cheerleading is super, super competitive, so I guess you gotta do what you gotta do. Clarence Ray Allen orchestrates a vicious murder for hire from behind bars. This is number 3. In June 1947, nope, that is completely wrong. I don't know. In June 1974, Clarence Ray Allen and his accomplices staged a burglary at Fran's Market in Fresno, California, stealing $500 in cash and $10,000 in money orders from the safe. This crime would set off a chain of events that led to the deaths of numerous people. Matt Kitts was the 17-year-old girlfriend. Oh no, it's not Matt. What's wrong with me? Mary Kitts was the 17-year-old girlfriend of Allen's son and took part in the scheme by cashing the stolen money orders. However, Kitts felt guilty about the crime and confessed her involvement to Byron Schelswitz, whose parents owned Fran's Market. In response, Allen had one of his associates perform a hit on Kitts. Oh, what the heck? Dang. Nevertheless, Allen was eventually linked to the burglary of Kitts' murder and sentenced to life in prison in 1977. So did she actually get killed, this poor girl? I don't know. Anyways, however, Clarence Ray Allen proved to be a more dangerous person inside of the prison than out. I mean, he must have killed her. Yep. I mean, she's gone. Like, that's so sad. She was trying to do the right thing. Anyways, while incarcerated, the vengeful Allen decided to orchestrate a murder for hire plot to take out the 7 witnesses who testified against him at the trial. He befriended an inmate named Billy Ray Hamilton and paid him $25,000 to commit the murders after being released. On September 5th, 1980, Hamilton and his girlfriend went to Fran's Market to kill Byron Schelswitz. They shot Schelswitz with 2 innocent employees to death and wounded 2 others. Days later, Hamilton was captured. A hit list containing the names of all the people Allen had hired him to kill was found in his pocket. That's smart. Clarence Ray Allen would receive the death penalty for orchestrating these murders even after diabetes left Allen legally blind and confined to a wheelchair. There could be no clemency for him. On January 17th, 2006, the 77-year-old Allen was given a lethal injection, making him one of the oldest people to be executed in history of the United States. Wow, I mean, he went through a lot. Just for $10,500? Really? Nuts. Okay. Dora Casanero, that's not a bad name. Dora Casanero hires hitmen to murder daughter's ex-boyfriend. This is a problem with parents getting so involved. Dora Casanero, this is number 2, by the way. Dora Casanero was seemingly ordinary suburban housewife who lived with her husband and 5 children in Bronson, Texas. Here we go. However, things took a shocking turn when Dora's youngest daughter, Christina, broke up with her 18-year-old boyfriend, Joey Fisher. Christina seemed very heartbroken by the split, and Dora became obsessed with bringing an end to her daughter's unhappiness. She even went so far as to offer Joey $500 to get back together with Christina, but he refused. On the morning of March 3rd, 1993, Joey was shot twice in the driveway outside of his home. A strange business card was found at the scene, which led police to an unlikely source for uncovering the truth behind the murder: a 73-year-old fortune teller named Maria Martinez. Yes, let's get this party started. This is an interesting story now, 100%. Not that it wasn't before, but this adds a nice twist. One of Martinez's most frequent customers happened to be Dora Casanero. After her daughter's breakup, Dora had gone to the fortune teller in order to cast a fatal spell on Christina's ex-boyfriend. Instead, Martinez turned to another customer named Daniel Garza, who helped acquire the services of 2 Mexican hitmen. Dora wound up paying these hitmen $3,000 to murder Joey Fisher. In 1994, Dora Casaneros and Daniel Garza both received life sentences for their roles in the crime. Maria Martinez wound up spending 6 years in prison, but the 2 alleged gunmen went back to Mexico and were never charged. What? This is what's crazy for me. She received a life sentence, and she ended up spending 6 years in prison. She essentially murdered someone. I don't know. Dora's conviction was overturned on appeal because an error had been made by the prosecution with their jury instructions. Of course. Nevertheless, Dora Casaneros went back on trial 2 years later and received another life sentence. This time the conviction held up and she remains incarcerated. There we go, people. It just it all gets resolved. But honestly, heartbreak sucks. But why you gotta be killing people? Let people move on. It wasn't meant to be. Better things are coming. Hang in there. That's my advice. Okay, number 1. We're on to number 1. Here we go. T. Colin Davis is recording a raging murder on tape, still gets acquitted at trial. Okay, here we go. Another acquittal. On August 2nd, 1976, a gunman broke into the home of Fort Worth, Texas. Just slow it down. Just when in doubt, just slow down. And shot 12-year-old Andrea Wilburn to death. Andrea's mother, Priscilla Davis, soon came home alongside her boyfriend, Stan Farr, and they were both shot as well. Okay, so... Oh my gosh, how did I just read right over that and not even process? They shot a 12-year-old girl. Okay, so they shot the girl and her mom and her mom's boyfriend. Wounded, Priscilla managed to flee the scene and survive, but a neighbor was shot and paralyzed by the gunman while attempting to help her. At the time, Priscilla was in a divorce proceeding with her estranged husband, a billionaire oil baron named T. Colin Davis. Priscilla identified Colin as the gunman, and he would become the wealthiest man in American history to go on trial for murder. However, Colin was acquitted as the jury did not believe that a billionaire would go to the trouble of performing a home invasion murder himself. This would be an eerie foreshadowing to T. Colin Davis's next brush with the law. She flat out identified him. But I guess she had ulterior motives, maybe. I don't know. In 1978, Cullen was arrested for attempting to acquire the services of a hitman to murder both Priscilla and the judge in their divorce litigation. Cullen had been set up by an elaborate sting operation. The so-called hitman was an undercover FBI informant secretly recording their conversation. Since recorded evidence was now in existence of Cullen orchestrating the murder-for-hire plot, a conviction seemed inevitable. His first trial ended with a hung jury. What a mess. But remarkably, Cullen would be acquitted the second time around. A forensic discourse analysis was performed on the recording of Cullen's conversation with the informant. The defense managed to convince the jury that Cullen was merely hiring the man to spy on his ex-wife and the judge and was not soliciting murder. This created enough reasonable doubt for the not guilty verdict, and T. Cullen Davis remains a free man to this day. Wow. Yeah, that's one to end on for sure. Okay, so apparently there's some movies and shows and stuff made from this. Check those out if you want. I'm going to close this, close that, close this. And there are so many of these, you guys. Like, so many. I wish I could find... I spent more time really investigating some juicy ones. There's... Here, we'll do 2 more. And then I had... Oh no, did I close that? All right, we've got a few more actually. So let's just get into it because we're not going to have all day, guys. So, a murder for hire plot targeted man's wife but killed sister instead. That's really sad. Okay. Washington State man was arrested in connection with a botched murder for hire plot that targeted his then wife but killed her 24-year-old sister instead. Kevin Lewis, 31, was arrested on murder and conspiracy charges on Monday in the September 2017 death of his former sister-in-law, Alicia Canales McGuire, who was fatally shot at her sister's home in northern Washington state while babysitting, according to the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office. Lewis allegedly paid 2 teenagers several $1,000s to kill his ex-wife, Amanda Canales, who was out of town at the time, according to police. So I guess the teenagers... so Lewis was already in prison, serving time for assaulting the victim's sister. Oh, okay. Seems confusing. He was arrested for assaulting his ex-wife, the sister of who got murdered on accident, because it was meant for her sister, which was the ex-wife. Anyways, so he was arrested on charges of aggravated murder with a firearm, conspiracy to commit murder, and solicitation to commit murder, police said. So police also charged 17-year-old Spokane girl. Oh, the girl hitman. Jeez. Police charged 17-year-old Spokane girl and 20-year-old Tacoma man with suspicion of first-degree aggravated murder, and first-degree conspiracy to commit murder. Investigators said the male suspect, who was 18 at the time of the shooting, posted images on social media, of course, showing off several $100 bills just a few hours after the murder. The female suspect allegedly bragged to several friends about being hired to kill someone in Snohomish County, according to the office. In analysis of the evidence, detectives believe the 2 suspects had been approached by Lewis, who asked them to kill his ex-wife for several $1,000s. The 2 drove from Spokane, where they were both living at the time of the murder. Cell phone records put both phones of the suspects at locations consistent with traveling together and within the timing of the murder. The male suspect was being held at the Snohomish County Jail on $5 million bail as of late Tuesday. So this was written April 9th, 2019. What the heck? This is April 9th, 2020. So this is a year later. This is pretty recent, guys. So, moving on. The female suspect, who was 16 at the time, was being held at a juvenile detention center. It is unclear if they have retained attorneys. Amanda Canales, the alleged intended target, said it's hard to believe that her ex-husband could do such a thing. It's a relief to have the world know that my family and I have known the whole time. What? I was with Kevin Lewis almost 10 years, and I just hid how horrible the marriage was from everyone. They didn't know the real Kevin. Even I didn't know how far he'd go until it happened. That's what confused me, because she said it's hard to believe that he would do it, But then she said, it's a relief to know that I've known the whole time. So I was thrown off there. That was a trick. They tricked me. So this was just a news report that was done by ABC News. So that's where I got this one from. And this next one is also, I believe, a news report. It's from the New York Post. So this one is 5 Chinese hitmen busted for outsourcing murder over development battle. This is a very funny picture. It says that's a no-hitter. A hitman in China got cold feet. So this is another one of, I believe, a novice. Is this the novice hitman? A hitman in China got cold feet, so he hired another guy to do the job, but he also outsourced the murder. So it forged a 5-man deep chain of bumbling subcontractors, none of whom actually did the deed. All 5 unnatural-born killers were sent to jail over the deadly game of hot potato, in which each pocketed some cash and paid some to the next guy, a little bit less. In the country, this is a Chinese country. I'm not gonna get it right probably, but it's Guangxi region last week. Well, I'll spell it. It's Guangxy. Okay, so the original hitman was first hired by real estate mogul Tan Yuhu. It's Youhu. Tan Yuhu in 2013 to kill a rival developer who had sued his company over the building battle, according to the outlet. Yuhu paid Z Guangan around $282,800. That is very specific. Why not just round it up? $300,000. Round it middle. $250,000. I mean, I don't know. $282,800 to slay his enemy. But the would-be killer took the cash and used half of it to hire another hitman, Mo Tan Zhang. I'm going with it. According to the report, which cited a release from the Nanning Intermediate People's Court. But Mo didn't kill the developer either. He passed off the job to another guy, Yang Kengxing, and paid him $38,000 up front and promised him around $71,000 when the job was done. So, to ensure that he'd finally be killed, Mo gave Yang the victim's photo along with his license plate number, according to the court. The next year, Yang subcontracted the killing to a 4th man, Yang Gongsheng, for $28,000 up front and $71,000 upon completion, the court said. A few months later, the second Yang handed the hit to a 5th man, Ling Zhangxi, for a measly $14,000. Ling ended up telling the developer about the plot to kill him, and together, well, of course, I mean, like, the money, it's just not there. Ling ended up telling the developer about the plot to kill him, and together they faked his murder, staging an image of him with his hands tied in the apparent attempt to collect the cash, according to the outlet. Eventually, the developer reported the murderous plot to the police, and each of the would-be hitmen was sentenced to between 2 and 4 years in prison. The developer who sought the initial hit got 5 years in the slammer, and that is the end of that. It just ended abruptly. But yeah, wow. That's what, I mean, I guess that's the risk you run. So now we're moving on to the FBI. This is FBI.gov. They've got some stories for you. I'm going to share them, and then they're going to tell us what they do to, to get control of this situation. All right? So this is our last bit of information, guys. Park your ears. Get titillatingly interested, because this is straight from FBI. I don't know if that's any better, but we'll see. Murder for hire, web hits of a deadly kind. Marissa Mark wanted someone dead. She wanted it done, and who was it? Her ex-boyfriend's new girlfriend, to be precise. And she found a way to have it done from her computer. In September 2006, the Pennsylvania resident and college graduate logged on, I mean, that's an important detail, I suppose. College graduate logged on to a hitmanforhire.net. Really? Really? It's a site often misinterpreted as a joke. Yeah. I mean, misinterpreted, so it's an actual site. What? But it was no laughing matter for Mark, who spelled it out very clearly. I want her done by a shot to the head. I don't understand. Because she said, oh, I'm getting confused here. Marissa Mark, not Mark. Mark was confusing because it's like a first name guy name, so threw me there. It threw me for a loop. I'm sure it did some of you too. Sorry, I'm not following along well. Okay, so Marissa Mark spelled it out clearly. A one or done, a shot to the head. Boom. And the hitman for hire on the other end? Well, a Las Vegas poker dealer, Assam Hamid Eden, an Egyptian national who was apparently looking for a little something to do on the side, said, sure, $37,000 from you and we'll get it done. So that was supposed to be a down payment. She came up with this down payment by stealing credit card information she had access to at the collections agency where she worked. Eid drove to the Los Angeles area where he showed up at the workplace of the 23-year-old intended victim. Eid presented the young woman with a dossier of sorts, photos of her, emails concerning the plan, and then paused. You remind me of my daughter, he said. He told the victim he could have 3 days to pay off the contract, and he would let her live. Oh, he's bribing her. Not bribing, what's the word? He's trying to get her to pay. Taking advantage. I don't know the word I'm looking for there, but you probably do. So you know what I mean. Fill it in. Fill the blanks in the brain. Panicked, she notified the authorities. Good girl. The case went to Special Agent Innard Sotilio from the FBI's Los Angeles field office. Sotilio discussed the particulars with the victim and had her make recorded phone calls pleading for more time to come up with the money, but Eid went radio silent. He's on her. I think so. Having identified Eid by this point and acting on a hunch that he had fled the country, Sotilio traced Eid to Ireland. He learned that he had recently been arrested for burglary and extortion. That's the word, extortion. Thank you. He's trying to extort her, but thought there might be more to it than that. She was right. Eid had crossed the pond and committed those crimes because of another hit ordered through his website and smuggled in homemade ricin in his contact lens case to boot. Okay, so then it kind of talks about the FBI's point of view. And it says murder for hire with an interstate nexus became a federal crime in 1958, but their involvement in these cases goes back to at least the 1930s and the days of the notorious Mafia Hit Squad Murder, Inc. That's the Murder Squad, Murder, Inc. And according to Special Agent Janelle Miller, head of the Violent Crimes Unit, they're more common than you'd think. We've determined this. At the beginning of this podcast, I said, what the heck? This is like a common, regular thing. There's so many. It blows my mind. Anyways, she says, we do a lot of them. 140 cases not tied to organized crime are currently pending, many of which involve inmates. The names change, the story doesn't, but there is a threshold, says Miller. It can't just be, I'm going to kill my lawyer, and that's it. Stilio agrees. A lot of people might say that they want someone dead, she explained, but unless you do something to put it into action, you haven't actually committed a crime. As for Eid, after serving a 6-year prison term in Ireland, he was extradited to the U.S., where he pled guilty to extortion charges and was sentenced in 2011 to 33 months in prison. And Mark received 6 years for ordering the hit and using stolen credit cards. But did Eid kill anyone? I don't know. I never could find that he actually did, said Stilio. He had all of the stuff he needed, including a pistol with a silencer and a castor bean plant and a ricin recipe. He had also attempted to order cyanide, but thankfully he never got to use it. Very interesting. Okay, so this is the next part of this article. It says, keeping the hits from happening. As with the rest of the Bureau's work, our ultimate goal in murder for hire cases is prevention. We maximize our resources by working many cases jointly with local and state authorities through our 35 violent crime task forces nationwide, and by tapping into federal racketeering laws, our undercover and surveillance capabilities, and our staple of informants. Following are examples of some recent murder for hire preventions. Number 1. A California man was sentenced to 6 years in prison for soliciting a hitman to kill 3 people, including his wife, because of a decade-old business dispute. He ordered the killings to take place only after the victims were tortured and forced to pay $15 million to his offshore bank account. but I guess it was prevented because it's the number one. Number two, a co-worker of Texas Gentlemen's Club admitting to trying to hire individuals from Mexico to kill the mayor of Arlington, Texas, and a Dallas attorney because of their roles in the club's closing. Number three, a convicted terrorist in North Carolina was found guilty of conspiring to pay a hitman to murder and behead 3 witnesses and law enforcement officers who testified against him. Jeez. I don't know what we're on. Sorry, I lost count. 4. Number 4, a Texas inmate was charged with soliciting the murder for hire of a judge assigned to his case. I wonder if there's probably so many judges who this happens to, but anyway. So, because he believed the judge would sentence him to more than 20 years in prison, so he wanted him axed. Number 5, an Alabama woman was sentenced to 10 years in prison for attempting to hire someone to kill her ex-husband with a poison cocktail of prescription medication supplied in part by her mother. Ooh, and then the last one, number 6, an Idaho man was sentenced to 50 years in prison, 50, for hiring his handyman to install a pipe bomb on his wife's car in an effort to kill her and his mother-in-law. What if that's because a bomb was involved? Dang, I don't know. That's exhausting. So, murder for hire, guys. That is our episode for today. Let me know what you think. I'm going to post a couple things about this on the Instagram account. Follow along over there. Answer some questions for me if you want. There's going to be some polls and different things. But I would like to get some feedback from you guys because I don't have anyone around me here to give me feedback. So that's what's great about the social media thing. But yeah, I hope everyone's surviving and doing okay during this social isolation situation, which it's really not a social isolation because we live in an age where you can connect with anybody online and you can stand across the street from your neighbor and wave. It's not, the end of the world isolation, but still that connection with other people has decreased. So hopefully you're reaching out as much as you can with people if you need to. I, introverted, don't need that. But, I have to push myself sometimes. So I'm working on that. If you have any recommendations for me for things to do during this time, let me know. I personally put up again on the Instagram account, Telephone Tales Instagram, there is a post on there for things to do during this COVID-19 situation. So there's lots of good ideas there. But yeah, if you want any more ideas, I've got plenty. So let me know. Hit me up. Send me a DM or something. And what else? Yeah, I guess that's it. I guess I'll leave you here and we will catch up next time. Let me know if you have any ideas for things that you are interested in, that you want me to cover. If you want me to not just read stories, but if there's something more you want from me, just let me know. I'm open to it. And if you have any stories, please send them to me. You can send them to my Gmail at telephonetales. I'm going to make sure I get it right. telephonetalespod@gmail.com or DM me at telephonetales on Instagram. I think there's also a Twitter account out there. So check it out. And yeah, let me know. All right, guys, I will talk to you next time. Take care. Bye.